What we're going to have a look at is Black Point, and Black Point's on the south coast of New South Wales, and this was quite a prominent midden, and I've been keeping an eye on it over the last couple of years, and I'm disappointed to notice quite extensive erosion that's occurred, get my finger in a shot, just around this level here that's exposed to king tides, and this particular spot just here only a couple of years ago extended another couple of feet out. So within such a short period of time, this area has seen quite a lot of erosion. So what I'm going to do is just have a wander around the base of the erosion from this midden and just have a look at any tools that can be found. So just another view on this midden side, and we could see that in the past this midden would have extended quite a way out, and we can see the erosion has got right in there. This particular midden, you can see there's various small shell deposits that extend quite a way up, and if you follow the path you'll notice various shell deposits quite high up from the high tide level. And this particular site was an important meeting place for various family groups, and due to the size of the midden, this probably would have had quite an extensive occupation. Having a close look at this site, one thing that is obvious is that there are a lot of stones all throughout the midden, and some of them, as we can see, are quite flat. This one up here as well, and these may have been the base of platforms that would have been used for cracking open shells and things like that. And we can see that there's various kinds of shells throughout this site. Okay, so this is the first thing I picked up, and we can see that it's a piece of mafic rock, a piece of basalt from a river cobble. We can tell that due to this outer cortex, which is worn quite smooth. And this is probably a piece from a larger core, and the negative bolts of percussion on this may have been to remove flakes, but this is definitely a small piece of a larger core, or if not a core itself. So what we've got here is, if we have a look, we've got another piece of river cobble. We can see that it's a piece of quartzite, and what's interesting about some of these stones that can be found in this particular site is that you notice depressions within the mulling or grinding surface, and these are known as Abrading stones or Millstones, and what these may have been used for is filing things like the ends of spears, removing bark from stems or sticks, and that's what I've read is the reason that you can find some of these sort of small mullers with a slight concave depression in it, and this seems to be an example of one. It doesn't appear to have a very deep concavity, but we can see that this surface has been worn quite smooth. So that's an Abrading stone. So right beside that, what we've got is what appears to be a piece of flint or something similar to that, and we can see that it's also a river cobble, and interestingly this one has 3 negative bulbs of percussion, which means that it's been struck 3 times in an attempt, I would say, to remove flakes. And we can see that maybe the attempt at removing the flakes wasn't overly successful, but nevertheless we've got a stone that exhibits percussion flaking. Still not moving the camera, there's just so much around in this particular site. And again we've got a piece of quartzite, and it's, as we've seen in other sites, it's been trunicated or broken in half, and we can see that one of the faces has been worn quite smooth, and especially if we have a look along this particular surface here, we can see that it's definitely had some kind of grinding action. So this may have been a larger Muller that has been either broken in half, or it was already broken in half, maybe due to how we can see a little bit of beveling of this edge here, and then used as a small Muller. Okay, so this is quite interesting, and I'm just going to get a close focus on that. And we've seen in other sites similar forms to this, and this appears to be, from my point of view, a small, almost ground edge axe, without, displaying the usual signs of a typical ground edge axe. But what we can see is that it's really quite a small specimen, and what I think separates this from a naturally occurring stone is that we can see that there has been initially some percussion attempts along this edge on both sides, and we can see it also displays the similar form to what we've seen in some of the other small axes. So due to its size, this may have been, if this is indeed a form of small crude ground edge axe, may have been used by a child to practice the technique of making such tools. You can see along that edge that has had a little bit of work applied to it. This notch in here is something we've seen before, and that may have been used to assist with hafting, to be able to attach this to a shaft. Okay, this is quite interesting. Might just pull the focus back a tiny bit. Okay, what we can see with this particular cobble here is that it has definitely got a depression in the center of it, and if we have a closer look, what we can almost make out, although due to the kind of sandstone it is, with some of these larger quartz crystals, it may be a bit too much of a call to say that some of these marks in here may be pitting marks. But if this has been intentionally worn out, this would be known as a millstone. So things like nuts or orca was placed in the center of this and then ground. So it's kind of like a small dish to be able to grind things in. So this is known as a millstone. And we can see that it's got quite a nice flat form. That depression is in quite a good place. It being of sandstone, it's coarse, so it would be a little bit more grippy, and something like a hammerstone would have been employed to mill whatever was used on this particular millstone. Just pull the focus on that, make it a bit closer. Okay, what we've got here again is a piece of mafic rock or basalt, and we can see that it's a cobble, and interestingly we can see that it's got a large negative bowl of percussion on this side and on this side, plus also one here and one here. So this, although not exactly this form, is known as a cobble chopper, and although due to it having this large negative bulb right here, feels like it's a bit uncomfortable in the hand. So this may again have been hafted to a shaft to be used as some form of hatchet or something similar to that, or it may simply have been used as a small hand chopper. I don't think that although possibly this may be a core, so these flakes may have been intentionally used, or this stone may have been intentionally used to produce flakes, but as we can see, it wouldn't have produced very predictable flakes, as we can see that the negative bulb here has some imperfections. So I would say this is probably a tool itself. Okay, this is quite interesting. I've just had a quick look at this, and it appears to be a really old core. We can see that it's got a lot of oxidization, or what's known as pitina, that has occurred on the outside so making a new cortex for this particular stone. But what we can see is that it displays various percussion marks. We can see that this would have been the interior surface or ventral surface of possibly a larger core, or something similar. But we can see various kind of old flakes that were removed from this. But interestingly, if we have a look straight down this edge, we can see that this particular face right here displays grinding. I'm not sure if it could be said on this side here as well, or just due to its age, it has kind of just been weathered. But this certainly appears to have some kind of grinding. So as for the purpose of this, it may have been used in conjunction with a sort of mill base or some kind of grinding base, and being used as a small grinding implement. Okay, what we've got here again appears to be, I'll just pull that into focus, a small abrading stone. We can again see that it's got a slight concave depression on it, which has been worn quite smooth. Again, it's made out of a piece of quartzite. But what else makes this interesting is that, I'm not sure if this is showing up, I'll just see if I can get as close a focus to that as possible. We can see that it's also smooth and worn on this face right here. So this end here may be known as a file. So this could have been used as a filing stone, and what these were used for, if I can happen upon a suitable shell, they were used for grinding the insides of shells for the process of making fish hooks. So that's what this particular ground face may have been used for, or simply it may have been used again for filing wood or things like that. So this may be another example of a small abrading stone or a file stone. So again, we've got another piece of quartzite, and again we can see it's been trunicated or split in half, and I thought this face here may have been worn flat, but as we can see, it's not completely flat. Although it is smooth, it's not super flat. But what is interesting is that this, let's get a close focus on that, appears to have what's known as chattering. So this appears as though it's been used for hammering, or sort of being the hammer part to sort of mull down possibly, you know, things like plant material. So this may have been used as some form of small sort of hammerstone for mulling. Okay, this is quite interesting. Again, we've got a piece of quartzite, and it appears as though it has had some kind of work or applied to this particular edge along here. Although we can't see the traditional sort of negative bulbs of percussion, we can see that an attempted edge has sort of been worked along this particular edge here. You can see one negative bulb here, another one here, possibly an old one here, and then again we've got some step terminations on this side, which indicates you know, a large force was applied to this side. And this may even be a large step termination along here that's occurred as sort of a large amount of pressure was applied when the flake was removed. So this may be a small cobble chopper, sort of used for, you know, used by the hand for chopping. Okay, this is quite an interesting form. Although we don't see any kind of percussion markings on it, it does have really quite an interesting form, almost as if either this stone was discovered in this form and looks as though it's got some sort of large notches that would have been suitable for hafting, or it just may be a coincidence that a stone of this form is found right at the base of this particular midden. So I believe this was probably hafted and used as some form of hatchet or axe or something similar to that. It's got quite an interesting colour. That orange is quite prominent. It appears to be a piece of quartzite. It may contain quite a lot of iron, so that gives it its rusty appearance. So again, we've got what appears to be a piece of mafic rock, basalt by the looks of it, and we can see that it's had a large amount of force applied to it. So this river cobble has been struck at this end to remove quite a large flake. But it also appears to have been struck on this side as well. So this again may be a form of hand chopper. We can see that this edge isn't the neatest from some of the other pebble or cobble choppers that we've come across, but nevertheless it certainly has had some form of hammer percussion occur to it. A couple of years ago now, I had a shot from a similar angle of this Midden side, and we can see that quite a lot has changed due to this particular footpath being in this location. So this is as an interesting example of, you know, current human destruction of these sites that could be avoided. And as we can see that the change that has occurred in this particular spot is pretty dramatic in such a short period of time. So in this particular spot we've got two things of interest. We've got what appears to be another form of abrading stone, or a file stone. Again, this could have been used due to its kind of point to assist with the manufacturing of shell fish hooks. But also, if we have a look along this face here, it may have been used also filing or abrading something like a wooden shaft, so a spear or something similar to that, and so that if that was the case, it would be known as an abrading stone, or if these points were used to manufacture fish hooks, then it would be known as a file stone. Right beside it, we've got what appears to be some kind of mafic rock, so something like basalt again, and we can see we've got another large flake, and we can see the initial point of percussion here, or maybe this is simply the attempt at reworking this particular edge. This particular form is interesting because we've seen other examples of this. So this may have been used again as a form of chopper. And it looks like when the initial flake was removed, we've got a large step termination, so it didn't break with a nice kind of feather to produce a nice cutting edge. But nevertheless, if we have a look down the intended cutting edge, we can see that it may possibly display signs of additional retouching on both sides, or even just the one. Although it's a bit difficult to tell. I never get sick of looking at Mullers, and what we can see again is we've got a piece of quartzite, and it displays the kind of typical Muller form that we've seen in the past. And if we have a look down this face here, we can see that it's been worn quite smooth. It's quite smooth to the touch. It's quite a nice size to hold in the hand. So there you go, another example of a Muller. So what we've got here is another piece of quartzite, and we can see that it's had some work happen to it. We can see that its initial cobble form has been changed, and we can see that along this edge here it appears as though it's got additional hammer percussion to produce negative bolts of percussion. So this is a small cobble chopper, and this may have been used to assist with removing shells and things like that from the rocks. So again, by now you should probably be able to tell what this is. We can see that we've got a piece of quartzite, and this appears to be a large core. We can see that initially it was a large river cobble, and if I just spin it around, you should be able to see the various percussion markings, the negative bolts percussion, to change the initial form of this cobble. So we can see that the crystals are quite small, so this may have produced fairly regular flakes, or enough to be able to assist with whatever they were needed for. But we've got a large cobble that displays various signs of hammer percussion. So I've just pulled back a bit just to give you a little bit more of an overview. As mentioned, the Midden extended further out, and over the years that I've come to visit it, I've seen that it's been gradually being eroded away. So this may be a good reference if you happen to watch this video in the future and you come to this site. It'll be interesting to note the amount of erosion that has occurred since this video was made. So at the moment we can see that it appears to be, from my observations, being eroded about a foot every year, 2 years maybe, which appears to be quite fast. So it's not going to take long before what we see in front of us is further eroded to the extent where it may back onto this particular cliff face or the initial cliff face. So just another wide shot as a reference point, so the erosion of this site can be monitored. And if I just swing the camera around, we can see the current footpath running up through there and the current state of the erosion. So as the erosion progresses, the integrity of the shell midden itself will be destroyed. A lot of the tools will possibly remain for a longer period of time, but eventually, due to future weathering through the action of waves and things like that, or people trading on them, in this case of the as we can see with the path that runs up both sides, the whatever of importance in this particular site will be lost. Okay, so just a little bit of a closer view on the Midden side, and we can see that, as mentioned before, it's got a lot of various stones through it. And interestingly, we can see various quartzite stones. This small one down here, you can see it's been trunicated, and looking along there, you can see some other sort of felsic rocks that are different to the naturally occurring sandstone that can be found in this particular area. We can also see various types of shells displayed throughout, and we can almost see the various layers of deposition that has occurred as this Midden site grew over time. So I'll just give you another bit of a close-up look, and I'll just swing the camera around, so I haven't got this on a good head at the moment, on a good tripod head. We can see the stones that make up and the shells that make up this Midden. If I tilt the camera down, we can see we've got another piece of quartzite. Again, it's been trunicated. It appears as though it's been broken off a larger core, but actually, interestingly, it looks like it has an indentation or a concavity that runs right through there. And let's see if I can get a close focus on that. Yeah, it appears as though some kind of grinding action has occurred. So again, this may be an abrading stone. So this would have possibly been used for removing the bark, as we've mentioned before, from the stem, of a branch, twig, kind of thing like that, to produce a spear. It may have had other additional purposes along those lines. But we can definitely see this piece of quartzite was from an original larger cobble. Also appears to have a little bit of grinding on this surface too. And definitely when we flip it over, we can see that it has a concavity that runs along there that may have been used for a form of abrading. So I might leave it there. This is just a quick look at the Midden site and some of the stone tools that can be found at Blackhead. And it's interesting to notice the amount of erosion that's occurred at this site in the short period of time that I've been visiting it. And I am sure if you come to this site, you will notice erosion or further erosion from what you can see in this video or my very early videos of this same site. So sites like this, I think, are currently being slowly worn away, and I don't think they have got much longer in their current state. And as you can see, their current state is quite poor. So I hope that these kind of videos just help a little bit in documenting the important heritage that these sites have and the importance and significance that they hold to the Indigenous communities of these areas. And I hope that the knowledge and the various time that was taken to process some of these tools, and the amount of history that these areas offer doesn't just disappear into obscurity, and that we always will have some kind of respect for these particular locations.